Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is doing well today. Today I've got a fantastic upload for you guys. I've got some Q&A from William, and I've got a response from a subscriber who William asked to hear what he was talking about. So before we get into that, a couple links. As you know, I rely on my Patreon, my PayPal, and my merch to help this channel to continue to grow and go. All those links are in the description below. I also have a second channel for creepypasta, fanfiction, and scary voice acting. Stories that really don't fit on this channel. Now, if that's anything you're into, follow that link and give those stories a listen. You may just like what you hear. Now, I've taken enough of your time, guys. Let's get on with today's upload. Shall we? About a week ago, Curve 57 had made a statement, and William asked for him to share his encounter with us. This is what Curve 57 sent. William, thank you for everything you are doing. Most of the paranormal stuff I have felt is cattle mutilation on ranches of western Colorado, around the Montrose area where I grew up. I'll save you from telling you about that because I still owe Jeffrey that information, and he is free to share it with you when I have time to put it together. My first encounter was when I was around 10 years old and was stalked in the Black Canyon area around Colorado. I was hiking down to the river to go fishing with my dad. He took more of an advanced trail. I think it was a bobcat trail, if I remember correctly. And I was taking the Chucker Trail. Before I get too far, I'm telling you about this encounter because it relates to the recent stuff. Anyway, about 10 minutes into the hike, I felt this horrible dread. Something was telling me to get the hell back to the truck. I tried to ignore it and kept pushing on. I made it about halfway to the river before I physically couldn't take the feelings I was having. It was at this point I started seeing very large tracks that I could not identify. At the time I assumed them to be a mountain lion, but they were very skinny and long with huge claws. They only had 3 pads though. About halfway to the truck I started seeing them again. But this time they were following my original footprints on the way down. I realized at this point I was in some serious trouble. I chambered around in my shotgun. When I got to the truck, I quickly unlocked it and jumped in, locking the door behind me. It was at this point I saw it looking at me from the top of a rock. It was solid black, very wide and low to the ground. I thought it was a cat, but it didn't look right. I still don't know what it was, and the very wide and low stance still gives me nightmares. This thing had to be 300 pounds, but the way it was standing on all fours was so strange. Maybe 1.5 feet off of the ground. The face looked in between that of a cat and a canine. In other words, it had a dog's snout, but shorter, if that makes sense. Luckily, it disappeared and nothing further happened. Fast forward to last November, my daughters and I were flying my drone looking for animals, and I was looking for whatever. This thing I'm about to tell you, I didn't tell my daughters or anyone I had been seeing what I described as a child, running away on all fours a few times extremely low to the ground. My drone took off above the trees when this thing, whatever it was, jumped out of the bush about 10 feet away from us and ran like the wind. It was unbelievably fast. I only saw the back side of it, and it just looked like a solid black mass in that strange low-to-the-ground stance running. It was incredibly strange. It was very large, blacker than night, and ran faster than I had ever seen anything move. It was like it was pulling itself with its front legs and pushing with its back together, not separate like a dog or a cat runs. Since then, I started flying my drone looking for it, and it seemed to have been gone till a few weeks ago. I started smelling the very strong odor of pus and wet dog by the front porch and shop area at the entrance. I have caught it running in the sides of my eyes, if that makes sense, twice. But that damn thing is so fast, it's hard to keep up before it disappears. This started happening right after the kids and I went back into the woods and had a fire and talked for hours one afternoon. Not sure that has anything to do with it or not. I haven't seen it long enough to catch any features on its face, but it's definitely triangle-shaped. I'm sorry this isn't very exciting, but that's really all that's happened. Oh, we have also woken up twice around 3 in the morning to growling outside, but it stops as soon as I get up and turn on the lights. Any insight you could provide would be appreciated. Thank you very much for what you do, and thank you for your service to our country. Curve 57. Now, Curve, I know William does listen to every upload I put out. He did ask for your statement, a little more detail, but please don't forget to share the rest of the encounters with me. I think myself and the others would love to hear it. Now on to the Q&A with William. Keith Riverside asks, is there any way William could tell me about Ulster County, New York? I've had several encounters with the Dogman and one werewolf, but I know he can't say how many are in the area. But with the big 3 in the area, how safe is it? William, do you think the movie Abraham Lincoln the Vampire Hunter is true? Well, Keith, let's say it this way. Don't go venturing very far from your home after dusk. There are bunches of both breeds in your area, so keep yourself and your family and friends that will listen to you inside at night. Keep your domestic animals in your home. And if you have farm animals, put them in the barn at night. Keith, sorry to say, but this is all fantasy. No truth to this, even with all of the money that it made. And it really wasn't a bad movie at all. A Jar of Pickles asks, Bill, what exactly makes these things so effective in war? Does it have to do with psychological effect of fighting something that isn't supposed to exist? Or some other reason? By the way you describe vampires, you make them seem like they don't kill people due to a moral obligation. Can vampires be good people? And do they function in society like everyone else? And have you met one? The one sent into the tunnels in Vietnam, on average, killed 273 Viet Cong enemy, and always exited in less than 45 minutes, and would then fail to return to their handler. At this point, we would send in what was known as a tunnel rat to count the dead. So if one werewolf can be this destructive, what do you think the chances are for units of foot soldiers advancing facing these creatures? This is also part of it. What would you think if you saw that many of these creatures moving forward at you, and then they start running at you at over 40 miles an hour? Would that not take a psychological effect on your being? Especially being in a foreign country and seeing this for the first time, knowing you can't get back home safely. They don't kill people to drink their blood. The modern-day vampire steals the blood from blood banks that keep whole blood. They don't suck it out of people's necks as you see on movies. Yes, the function as everyday people, and yes, I have met one. He actually worked in the Pentagon, and we watched him for more than 4 months before he went out and broke into another blood bank and was arrested for it. When his trail came around, he was sentenced to a psychological ward for a remainder of his life. Drew Ferguson asks, William, do you know if Sebastian has any reactions to the phases of the moon? Does he have any adverse reactions to plants or other natural substances? Meaning, is there any plants or scents that he avoids or will turn away from? Does Sebastian have any reactions to certain colors? If so, do certain colors attract him or repulse him? For example, does bright red attract him? And would a common occurrence of, say, red and black or black and yellow cause him to avoid something like in nature, when something is poisonous, and to be avoided it usually looks black and yellow or red and yellow, concentric circles or spots? Has Sebastian ever bitten anyone at the compound, and was there an adverse reaction? Do you think that certain families in the United States and Europe have knowledge of these creatures, and others like them, and have a history with them, hunting them, or protecting them? Also, what questions should we be asking, and we haven't yet? Lastly, have you or any of your group ever heard of the Council of Seven? Very much so. I hate taking him outside if it's a full moon. I have lots of trouble trying to control him, but he will listen to me. But what usually takes a 2-hour walk turns into a 5-hour walk, and he is into everything and howling like he's going wild. I keep more distance on those nights because there are many females running loose on the backside of the base, and with him acting this way, I don't know if he is talking to them or just acting out. If he does, I am unaware of them. He has never backed away from anything in the woods behind our base in the woods, so maybe nothing grows there that would bother him. Yes, you can't wear bright colors around him, especially yellow. He'll try to break out of his enclosure to get at you if you wear yellow around him. I don't know why, but it sets him into a fit of rage, but does not seem to affect the others. I've seen him avoid yellow flowers, but I have not seen a color that he seems drawn to. I don't think he has a favorite color. Yes, he's killed agents before with his claws after they used a cattle prod on him for fun. And he has bitten one of the agents many years ago that died from their wounds as well. I know there are groups today that hunt werewolves for sport, and most times end up killing a dogman and think it's a werewolf, and they start to go to the press and have to be silenced before this can happen. Most times the FBI is much closer and will handle this for us. I can't tell you what questions to ask. The people have asked some really good ones, and some mean nothing to no one. Not even the ones wanting to know. Wish there were someone who had made a list of all the questions asked, but that would take some time, and I sure don't have the time to write them all down and make a list, and I know Jeff doesn't either. And so many have been asked, and so many episodes, I can't remember what has and what has not been asked. Yes, I have heard of the Council of Seven. Humans, dwarfs, elves, lizards, imps, orcs, and wizards. Steve Riley asks, William, does Sebastian know that we call them werewolves? What does Sebastian think about werewolf movies? What do werewolves think of regular wolves? Yes, he knows this is what we call his breed, and he doesn't have a problem with it. He had mentioned that in their history, long ago, that they were called by this name, not many years after their creation. He growls softly at them, and you can tell by the look in his eyes he is amused, especially during the transformation. He says, werewolves don't do that. Where did they get that idea? And we ended up getting into a big debate, and he almost cornered me at one point. But I used Webster's to get me out of that and win the debate. We have a pair of gray wolves, a pair of red wolves, and a pair of timber wolves that we keep in the enclosure area to help with training. And like the dogs we keep, they are all submissive to him. The dogs are actually scared of him, but all he will do is pet and love on them. And the wolves the same, but they don't seem to be afraid of him as the dogs are. Zach Guess asks, I have a question for William. Is the 375 H&H Magnum and a 340 Weatherby Magnum strong enough for a dogman or werewolf? I know you can't answer any more questions that have to do with the numbers, and I understand why, but If you are okay to say if Alabama is good to go or need to be cautious every morning or at night, especially around Mobile, Alabama. Zach, your 375 H&H is your best choice by far, but you need something that will get you more penetration. You don't want soft points. Both guns will take down a werewolf or a dogman, but in case you were to run into a Bigfoot, you are taking your life into your own hands then. I was backing an agent who was after a Bigfoot, and we'll finally caught up to him. Really not that big, 7 to 9 feet, and he had a 375 H&H. First shot at about 150 yards in the back got his attention. And here he came. I started to step out from behind him, and he said he had this. So I held still. Next shot hit him square in the chest and didn't even slow him down, now at 85 yards. I said, "You're sure?" He said yes, and I held my ground knowing he only had one more shot in his rifle. He took careful aim and hit him in the throat. He stopped for a split second, then exploded at us from maybe 30 yards. He yelled, "Run!" I stepped into my rifle, come into my target, and fired and lifted him up and back about 7 feet, from about 5 yards from me when I pulled the trigger. He was amazed and wanted to know what I was shooting, and he wanted one. Unfortunately, he didn't live long enough to get one. He died along with his girlfriend in a car wreck. You are fairly safe in Mobile unless you go due north about 30 miles. Then you'll start getting into some trouble. Brian McCoy asks, does the Dogman look like the one in Van Helsing turned on to? And what exactly does a werewolf look like? Okay, Brian, the best way to tell you what they look like, close to, is the following. The werewolf looks closest to the movie The Wolfman 1941, and the Dogman looks closest to the Dog Soldiers 2002. Both can be found on YouTube, and that will give you your best at what they look like. The werewolf will be a good bit larger than just the regular man as well. Lost Soul asks, Bill, are the reptilians' body temperature different from ours? If so, by how many degrees higher or lower? How many of them show up at presidential speeches? And is it a regular occurrence? Do you know of any of the DUMBs or facilities in Houston that were running back in the 80s? Yes and no. They regulate their body temperature by a process known as thermoregulation, which regulates their temperature around the clock, and they are experts at using this system. Their body temperature runs between 50 and 104 degrees. When it gets below 50, they have to find a place to warm or a place to go dormant. Also, when their body temperature reaches 104, they must find shade or go dormant until they are able to get it down. Perfect body temperature for one is 86 degrees. Yes, they show up fairly often at speeches. I don't know why this is. They never caused any problems in the press area ever, except for their eyes changing, and we will put them just as soon as this happens. Take them to a secure, soundproof room just in case they give us a hard time, and identify them and remove them forever. If we identify them and they have not shown a change, they are called aside and all press papers are taken and they are told never to return. We have had 3 in the past month that had been escorted out during a press conference, 2 the same night. Houston has no underground facilities, to my knowledge, all the way back to 85. I can speak of. Sorry I couldn't help more with this question. Actually, I just looked and saw nothing for Houston all the way back to the 50s. Russell Hilgernoff asks, William, what is the average lifespan for the big 3? Well, let's start with the Dogman. His lifespan is somewhere around 65 years, and we are starting to experience some dying of natural causes now. Not many, but some of the numbers are not alarming but happening. Then you have the werewolf. Their lifespan is about 80 years, so Sebastian is close to the end of his life cycle. We have had maybe 35 die from natural causes so far in this breed, but that's not bad considering how long this program has been going on for. And then comes the Bigfoot. It is an estimate from people talking about having them around on farms for more than several decades at a time. The number given is 100 years of age before they will decease. John Sumner asks, in the Vietnam War, while the U.S. troops were using Dogman, did they ever have deadly encounters with rock apes, Vietnam version of Bigfoot? Yes, John. On many occasions at night, when deployed, there was fighting among them, but the rock apes were not large enough to inflict damage to the werewolves. I think in total they killed 17 hand-to-hand and still completed their own missions. Adolfo Chavez asks, where do the chupacabra come from? What are they? I've heard a story on another YouTube channel about some cryptids that people have encountered in Venezuela. People call them Los Aldos, meaning the winged ones. They are depicted as women-looking beings with wings and with no clothes whatsoever. Is it true such creatures exist? On that same YouTube channel, there's a story that these creatures called Lion Men of Judah, described basically as men with lion heads. Do these creatures exist? It all started in Puerto Rico and has since spread to Chile to Maine. Its nickname is the goat sucker. I believe that's right. And it's supposed to be about the size of a bear with quills or spines on its back. I myself have never seen one of these. I've seen the canine or dog type that runs over a good portion of the Southwest. It is a reptile-type creature with leather-like skin, green in color and scaly. When it moves, it stands on its hind legs and jumps something similar to a kangaroo. Sorry, Adolfo, I am not aware of this creature. I have not heard of it, and it does not appear in my computer list of cryptids that I have for the world. They are listed under a fantasy list, so it means that someone has claimed to have seen this, but no hard evidence has ever been brought forward to prove it. Huckabuck Ratchet City Hero asks, Wild Bill, do trolls really exist? And if so, what all do you know about them? Wild Bill, do fairy tale creatures exist? Fairies, leprechauns, unicorns, centaurs, and other things of that nature? It's a being in Norse mythology folklore. They dwell in caves, in the rocks, or in the mountains. They are not much help to humans and live as far away from us as possible in their own little families. Some are even considered to be dangerous to humans. That's about it. None of them would fall under what I hunt. These all fall under the heading of a paranormal, so I am uncertain about them. Otero81 asked, Hey William, how many dogmen are in downtown Chicago and how many werewolves live in the city? Now you know I can't give out any numbers any longer, but you can go out at night and stay inside of city limits. Daryl Ogle asks, Hey William, I have a question. Wendigo, is it dangerous? And what creature is most harmless out of the 12 or 15 out there? It can be, depending on how you handle the situation. If you keep control and don't let it play mind games with you, then you'll be okay. But you must remain in control at all times. It takes a really strong mind to do this, and it's also very dangerous to do this by yourself unless you are absolutely sure you know where your mind is. The chupacabra is the meekest one out there. It will bite you given the chance, but More than likely, it's going to run from you just as soon as it hears you approaching. Sonia Ballard asks, you mentioned reptilians being present at press briefings or public presidential speeches. Can you tell me what is the purpose of reptilians being present? And are they a national threat? What is their purpose? We don't know why they show up at these speeches like they do. When they take them in, we have questioned them for hours on end and even forced them to turn trying to get answers and still nothing. They have never done anything wrong in the press area other than change their eyes for a very short time, but we have a way of knowing beforehand when they come in. If they don't change anything during the conference, we take them aside, pull their press papers, and tell them they are no longer welcome at the White House and to leave now, and they are escorted off the property. If they change their eyes, we take them in and take them to an enclosure, and that's where they will remain till we decide what to do with them. And it's usually not very nice. What's been happening to them, but now it falls into my lap, so I will have to see what I can do to figure it out. Don'tess 22 asks, hey William, has any agent taken one of the big three hand to hand and lived? No one has gone hand to hand with any of these creatures voluntarily. Myself lived through the Wyoming hunt with the help of the 2 female werewolves keeping me alive through the night, and getting me to the road for pickup and medical care, and 24 days in the hospital before going back and looking for the lady's body again. No one has went hands on with one and lived most times. If they just get their hands on you, you're dead, and the werewolf left me to die, and I would have, had Justin and the other 2 not found me and taken care of me like they did. Vincent Richardson asks, William, what does Sebastian like to debate about? What's his likes and dislikes? He will read something, doesn't matter what it is, as long as it strikes a chord with him. He will show or ask me about this in some slick way, and I will know what's coming, just hope it's something that I know about, and most of the time I will at least have a general knowledge of it, enough to debate him with. He will fire away for 15 or maybe 20 minutes sometimes before I'm able to speak or start my side of the debate. He will sit back, arms crossed, and listen to what I say, shake his head yes or no, and then come back at me again. I would put him against any high school debate team, and I've listened to some very good ones before. He's moody, just depends on that. The only thing I know for sure you can watch on TV time in and time out that he really enjoys is wrestling. I play him clips of Andre the Giant and tell him that he is almost as big as you, and he would throw you around like you throw me around, and he cuts his eyes and looks at me and looks at him and then cuts his eyes and looks at me again. K. Bowers, 8111 asks, talking about Sebastian reading. It would be interesting to hear his thoughts on the books, Jaws, The Exorcist, Moby Dick, etc., pulp culture stuff. I know that he has read Moby Dick because I spent about 4 days in the enclosure listening to his take on the book, and he would have gotten an A+ from me if that had been his book report. C.M. Bates asks, are there Dogman in southwest Iowa? CMB, you will have all 3 breeds in southwest Iowa for sure, but sorry I can't tell you. Tim asks, William, how can these things read without being taught? I'm confused how they can have such a high IQ, or even take a normal IQ test. Also, if you are the only person with the sequence to use these things, wouldn't the program be compromised if you got into a car accident or something and died? That seems like a lot of wasted time, money, and a huge risk to take. They're put in rooms and taught words over speakers and numbers the same way and shown visually for hours on end. And they stay in these enclosures for 16 hours a day for 4 or 5 years before release. Plus the older ones already talk. They also teach them. It's a test designed especially for them to take. It's a multiple choice and is given verbally to them. All they have to do is choose a letter and move forward. It is timed and everything, much like a normal IQ test. It is, but I just handed the sequence over to someone else that I trust with it, so I am not the only person now that has it. I would have been, that's why I made the decision to pass the sequence along to someone else, but my whole unit is down right now. I have 4 men beside myself in the hospital now with the COVID-19 and 17 in a barrack for the next 45 days quarantined, and under no way can they get out. Preston McFinley asks, "This is Preston again. My question is for William. First of all, thank you for answering my questions. Now, can you tell me what's going on in Kentucky that is making the Dogman or werewolves become so aggressive with animals? And sadly, the attack on the 13. Why the increase in violence?" I'm not really sure that it's gotten any worse, but that when it does hit close to home, we seem to pay much closer attention to our surroundings. I'm not answering calls anymore in Kentucky than I'm aware of. Matter of fact, we have not had a call out of Kentucky since the Knott County one. Jose Munez asks, "I would still please like to know if there are any Dogman and Werewolf in Corpus Christi, Texas area. It would be really great if you could answer me that, sir. Sir, if you live outside of the city limits of Corpus Christi, don't be going outside at night. You just may not make it back to your home." Samara Osborne asks, "Have you ever heard of the kangaroo men, cat or panther men? Flying dog-faced creatures, water babies similar to kelpies, and also about the 4-foot-high owl people? Also, have you heard of DM and Werewolf in Southern California near LA? In San Gabriel, San Bernardino Mountain Range, Riverside County Mountains, like Idlewild area, since we go hiking often?" I have heard of all of these creatures on that list except for the flying ones, which I would not deal with. We did have a case in Flagstaff that was supposed to involve a panther man, but that was all the way back in the mid-'80s and not my case. Also, when you are out hiking, make sure you are with someone else, or better a group if you're staying overnight. If you're hiking alone, I would make sure I was off the trail before it turns totally dark. Kyle Wendelkin asks, "William, do you believe in supernatural ghosts?" Kyle, I've never seen a ghost. I don't believe, unless you count what I believe to be my nightmares that are every night, and so real. I can feel and touch them, and they are there with me. But I will finally snap myself awake, and nothing will be there. I'll be soaked wet from fighting the sweating. In my dreams, I will have a shower and change the bed and want to go back to sleep. But yes, I would like to hear both of your encounters. Maybe I can learn from them. Big Hoss asks, "Agent William, what kind of uniform or suit do you wear when you are hunting these creatures? Do you use cover scent? Our uniforms are all black and very rugged. The pants are military issue, only in black. The tops are different. The undershirt is a special woven type that is supposed to help deflect the claws. The shirts are standard, heavy black Wrangler shirts, nothing special. Then we wear an overcoat that is both bullet and knife resistant. And then on top of that, we wear a Fly Force recon vest to top it off. Some agents use a scent. Most use lye soap, best scent cover there is. But you can't convince people of it. Take a bath with lye and your body will not produce any type of odor for around 72 hours, give or take a little. And lye doesn't give off an odor that will be smelled. Let's end the night with an encounter that I just recently found. I found it interesting. On Saturday, March 28th, 2020, eyewitness, along with his mother and friend, were at the Land Between the Lakes National Recreation Area. They were hiking in the area of Elk and Bison Prairie. They accessed one of the nearby trails and entered the woods. Before they reached the wooded area, the witness noticed a long, wide print on the ground. The print was not deep, but there was a distinct outline in which the witness was able to place both of the palms of his hands. The witness didn't have a phone with him, but he was able to get the attention of a ranger who was in the immediate area. The ranger looked at the print and acted puzzled by it. The witness asked if he had ever seen any similar prints before. The ranger didn't answer, but kind of shrugged his shoulders. The witness, his mother, and friend continued on the trail. After 15 minutes or so, he noticed a creature on the trail about 70 yards ahead of them. The trail was on a rise, so whatever this creature was, it was backlit by the horizon. At first, the witness was not sure that it was quadruped, was a large coyote. As he and his party stood and watched, the creature stood on the back legs while looking in their direction. The witness described the beast as an upright canine standing approximately 7 foot. The head was similar to that of a coyote, but much larger. The arms and legs were coyote-like, but very muscular. The chest was broad, and its color was darker than a coyote. About 15 seconds or so, the beast turned and ran in the opposite direction at great speed. The witness's mother and friend ran back up the trail. The witness hesitated a bit, but then realized that the beast was so fast that it could easily double back and cut them off on the trail. He then ran towards his mother and friend. Wow, now I feel good about tonight's narration. My throat is a little better. I really enjoyed, and I cannot wait for Curve to send his encounters to us. While I was narrating that, I was visualizing what he was feeling, and it was creepy. You know, that's definitely a creepy story. Some really good questions tonight. Thank you, William, for answering those. I truly appreciate it, and I know everyone else does as well. These are the questions that I like, and I know you guys like too. I mean, I know you guys don't want to hear the most, crazy off-the-wall questions, and I'm sure William doesn't want to answer them. I'm still seeing how many are in the area, but, it's human nature. Interesting little LBL encounter. Kind of weird. I want to go to the LBL. I know a lot of you guys do too. My thing is, though, I don't want to go hunting for the Dogman, Werewolf, Bigfoot. I don't want to go looking for them, though. What I want to see is those military installations, the shooting shacks. They are very interesting to me. I think that would be very cool to check out some old buildings. I remember one time I was hiking with a couple of my friends. We weren't hiking, we were just in the woods acting like idiots. We were like 15, 16. And we were deep in the woods along the Hudson River. Now, where I grew up, 5 minutes from where I'm recording this right now is where James Fenimore Cooper allegedly wrote Last of the Mohicans. And you can actually see Cooper's cave where, 5 minutes from my house. So we were just, going through the woods, and pretty dense woods. And we stumbled across this, I'm going to say 20 by 20 square, 2-story cinder block building. And it was built, you were walking on the ground and you walked right onto the roof of it. And it was kind of in an embankment. And if you stood at the tippy end of it, you could look down the embankment. And if you looked as you're standing on the roof, there was a room. And it had an open front and 2 windows on the side, one on each side. And then at the bottom was another open front, but kind of looked like a car garage, like a drive-in car garage. No doors, just cinder block. This was all cinder block. So me, there was 5 of us, 4 of my friends. We shimmied into this place. We kind of hung off with our hands and kicked ourselves into the windows on the side and got in there. And it was just an empty room made of cinder block and very, very strange. There was a gallon jug of gasoline, about half full. And you could, if you're standing in that room, you could see down this gully, like a big valley, but a gully. We're in the woods, but we're about 1/8 of a mile from the Hudson, so you could hear it. It wasn't that far from us. And being kids, 15, 16, we shimmied out, brought the gas up with us. There was a lot of weird writing, a lot of weird stuff. We all had weird feelings about it. This was before my encounter. I'd always believed in ghosts and the paranormal and, like the Illuminati, alchemy, the Orentia, just everything. I read a lot of very weird things that most 15, 16-year-olds don't read. And my friends did as well. So we felt like something was up with this place. We just all got this evil feeling about it. So we went back up onto the roof, this flat roof, and there was a small crack in it. And we poured the gasoline into the room below us. And we lit it. And it, poof, I remember this vivid, this fireball just blew out. Nothing happened to the building. It was just this cool fireball. I just hit my mic, sorry. And we felt like we did something good because we got rid of the gas and we cleared the area out with this huge fireball. But to this day, 25, 26, 7 years later, I still think about that building every once in a while and how creepy and how bad of vibes that sent up my, shoulders into my, just creeped me out, creeped my friends out as well. The area we were in was a very strange area as well. We'd drive down there at night, and between this building and the river, there's woods and this road dirt road would go down to this huge field, and we'd take our 22s down there and shoot, and just we were kids, we were idiot kids, but we'd go down there at night. And one night we thought we saw, we did see this. We were in a old Pontiac something, I forgot what the hell it was called. It was a 2-door sports car thing. Same kids hanging out, and we went down there to smoke weed, and this bright light came from nowhere. This is the same night that we did what we did with that building. It could have been a helicopter. It could have been something extraterrestrial, but it went over the car, and it was so bright and so low to the ground. And I remember my friend Jeff was driving, and we got the hell out of there. It was just a very creepy area that I grew up in, and I love stories like this. So that's another reason why I want to go to the LBL and check out those little buildings, these enclosures, because I love buildings like that in the woods that are just so offset and don't belong. I don't know, now I'm just rambling about nothing to do with the Dogman or werewolves, so you guys will probably turn this off. But anyway, I'm going to end it for tonight, and I want to thank you guys, and have a great night. I hit my mic again. Great.